Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Jeffery L. Boney, your host for Trending Tuesdays. Thank you so much for joining us on another outstanding Trending Tuesdays conversation. We're broadcasting live here from the K. Davis Showroom Plus, and we have our live studio audience in the building. Make some noise, everybody in the building. All right, we're going to have, as always, some outstanding conversation. I want to encourage everybody, take this opportunity to let everybody know that voting time is around the corner. Early voting is about to start in about a week or so, and you don't want to be on the sidelines for this one. You often hear, this is the biggest election of our lifetime. Well, trust me, this one is. And I don't think that any of us want to go backwards. There's no turning back. There's no time for playing politics and partisan politics. We know what we need for the future of our country. And if we look at what we're faced with and the decisions that we're faced with going to the ballot box or choosing to stay at home, if that was your choice before this conversation, I strongly encourage you, if you want to get back on the plantation, then stay at home. But if you want to make sure that we're moving together progressively and in unity and together as a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, I strongly encourage you to get to the polls and encourage somebody to go with you. Take somebody with you and make sure you make the right decisions, because we cannot go backwards. Joining me today to have a real robust conversation about something that, matter of fact, today, we just got some breaking news a few hours ago that a long-awaited trial that had been going on for about a month now, and of course that had been anticipated since this incident happened in January of 2019 involving former disgraced HPD officer Gerald Goins, who, former officer of the Houston Police Department, was found guilty of 2 counts of felony murder in the deaths of 59-year-old Dennis Tuttle and 58-year-old Regina Nicholas, and as well as their dog, who was also murdered because of a botched raid with a no-knock warrant that was fraudulently obtained by Gerald Goins. And we'll get into a lot more about who Gerald Goins is and some of the other things that are associated with him. But he was found guilty, and also he was sentenced today to 60 years per person. 60 years. He received 60 years for the death of Mr. Tuttle and 60 years for the death of Ms. Nicholas. And I don't think he got nothing for the dog, but 60 years, he's gonna have to serve those concurrent sentences, or at least in his service. And, he'll be eligible for parole, I wanna say, in about 30 years. So anyway, and he has to pay a $10,000 fine. And, the main thing is an HPD officer, a law enforcement official, was found guilty and sentenced. Now, you think about it, that these were 2 white individuals that were shot and killed, and he was given 60 years for both of them. And we've seen far, far more situations involving far less, with individuals, especially African Americans and minority individuals who have been unarmed and who have been shot and killed, and their officers got either a slap on the wrist or no punishment at all. As a matter of fact, some of them even kept their jobs for criminal activities and some of the things that they're doing. But here to talk about the Gerald Goins case, as well as some of the things that these 2 individuals have been talking about for many, 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 many years, and have been on the front lines of seeking justice and also reform in the law enforcement criminal justice arena. I'm talking about none other than Miss Kathy Swilley, former HPD police officer who was wrongfully terminated, as well as Mr. Ha Bowie, who is the founder of We the People Organize, a community grassroots organization based out of the city of Houston, Texas. Let's welcome them both to Trending Tuesdays, y'all. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll start with you, Mr. Bowie. I know you've been in the courtroom for the case, for the trial, as well as the sentencing for about a month.
Yes, every day.
Every day for a month. First of all, why the interest in this case, and why do you believe that the jury found him guilty?
Well, the evidence was so incredible. And first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. And I also want to thank my team, I was not the only one. I had two other friends that came, we switched around, but we showed up. So I want to thank my friend, Jeff, and also my friend, Brother Vincent. They were very helpful. And of course, Kathy, too, also giving us tips and advice throughout the whole process. And so anyway, to answer your question, can I give the background of the case?
Sure.
So maybe a lot of Houstonians don't know about the case. And of course, the reason why I went every day was because to document, to witness, to make sure that both sides were doing their job. If I see something fishy, I would make a big stink out of it. That's my role. And I understand that Houstonians are busy with their lives, and now we finally have an opportunity to tell the whole story from A to Z. I'm so very happy. In the past, you interviewed me before, I would always say, stay tuned. Always stay tuned, and hope that this day would happen, and it did. So on a personal note, I really believe that Regina, Dennis, the dog, and the brother of Regina, who passed away 3 years ago due to the stress and the heart attack, he and I became very close. We would talk, and he told his wife that I want to fight this. I really want, because we were wrong. This is totally wrong. And to me, my heart today, watching this press conference when Kim Ogg was speaking, I really feel that they got their wings today. Everyone.
Yes.
So that's, a wonderful feeling.
Kathy, so, little backstory. You were a police officer with the Houston Police Department for 28 years?
22 years.
Excuse me, 22 years. And you were wrongfully terminated because you became a whistleblower on some activity, behavior that you witnessed, and they set you up to try to pin something on you, to consider you untruthful, and you were terminated. So if you could talk about, your story a little bit, but then also, how getting the news of what happened with the conviction of Gerald Goins and some of the things that came out in the trial as to what led to this conviction, means to the community.
Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Boney. My story is not too much different than the Tuttles and other officers and victims of Gerald Goins. Whenever an officer complains about discrimination in the police department, they're targeted for termination. And just as the Tuttles were accused of committing a crime, in their case, it was drugs. In my case, they accused me of misappropriating funds. There's always going to be some kind of criminal charge just to open an investigation. They don't necessarily have to have any evidence, as they did in my case, not even a complaint, but yet and still they open a baseless criminal investigation. I feel the Tuttle's pain. I've been fighting this for 16 years. I've gone to city council probably 7 times, telling anybody that would listen that the police department's officers had a pattern and practice of fabricating evidence, tampering with evidence, and just flat out lying to judges. But nobody listened. So with this case, and not to mention the stress that I was under, because I had already warned anybody to listen, HPD officials, the mayor, council. So when the Tuttles, the last time that I advised the last chief we had in a letter that HPD was fabricating evidence and lying to judges, 6 months to the date, the Tuttles were killed on fabricated evidence.
So wait a minute, you're saying that 6 months prior to them being killed?
6 months, yes.
You wrote a letter to...
I wrote a letter.
To who?
To Chief Art Cerveto at the time.
And so you wrote a letter to the chief, and you were talking about some of the patterns that you were aware of or that you wanted to make them acknowledge.
Right, and even in my case, because in my case, every document in IED files clearly shows that I was innocent. The IED report, when it First of all, when the DA's office refused to accept charges on me for misappropriating funds for lack of evidence, the police department turned around and terminated me on an allegation of untruthfulness. I was only able to get my IED files after I filed a lawsuit. And that's something that's really sad. You don't get any of this evidence that you can use to clear your name unless you file a lawsuit. And attorneys are very expensive. You probably can't find an attorney in this city for under $200 an hour. But I was able to get my IED files. And in those IED files, the files clearly shows, it actually states, the untruthfulness allegation against Officer Swilley has been not sustained.
But you were terminated anyway.
I was terminated anyway.
So let's go backwards a little bit. So you're saying that you were accused of misappropriating funds, but what led to this? I mean, it just came out of nowhere. I mean,
that's a pattern.
I'm saying, but what made them say that you were misappropriating funds? Because you were getting awards. Didn't you receive like a Bravo award or something from the mayor? So you were a decorated officer. You were highly decorated officer.
Yes.
You were acknowledged by the mayor as being a top officer, a stellar officer, a community officer, but yet you had no issues or incidents prior to that. But what led to this coming out of nowhere?
Well, this is what happens when an officer especially complain about discrimination and sexual harassment.
So is that what you did?
Yes.
So tell me about that. Tell us about
how that came to be. Was I was appointed by then Chief Hurt to spearhead an organization that he had when he was in Phoenix. At the time, I had a youth program that was called Texas Cops and Kids. Cops giving kids quality time instead of jail time. And it was a really successful juvenile delinquent program. Actually, Governor Perry tapped into it. He wanted to model the program and make it a statewide mentoring program for disadvantaged youth. But the problem was, and I didn't know at the time when I got the assignment, my supervisors didn't want to do the initiative, but yet and still they expected me to go in the community and have fundraisers. So I went and I talked to the police chief, I talked to my captain, and I said, hey, I cannot continue to have these fundraisers and collecting all this money from the community and y'all not doing the program, and it's going to come back on me. So either you don't do the program and find a way to give people back their money. Well, again, if you complain, if you don't go along to get along, there's a price to pay. And no soon, in that meeting, the chief asked me, his admin said, well, she think that they don't want to do the program because the male officers, they get assistant for their special assignment, because I was on a special assignment, and she's not getting any assistant for hers, which was true. I started out just having one assignment, but before it's all over with, they stacked about 6 other assignments on me, which I didn't complain because I like being cross-trained, okay? So what I started doing, I started taking work home at night, learning how to do other projects. Mm-hmm. And the chief said, oh, okay, well, if it's discrimination, then you feel it's discrimination. The very next day, my captain, my chief called, not chief, my captain and my sergeant, when I got to work, I still had my lunch with me. They called me in their office and I wasn't even able to go to my desk. And they asked me, did I complain about discrimination in that unit? And I said, yeah, I did. I talked about it. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, that's not true. And I said, well, all I can tell you is what I feel, what I believe. And that kind of was the end of the conversation. But the next day, I was called at home that morning and told not to come to work. I was relieved of duty.
Wait a minute, they told you were terminated?
They told me I was relieved of duty, all my duties.
So you weren't terminated?
No, relieved of duty.
And
I asked the IED investigator, why am I relieved of duty? And he said, well, I don't know, but you need to come back to the Internal Affairs Department and turn in all of your equipment. everything, your badge and everything, minus your gun, because the gun is mine.
Now,
So
now at this point, you were 22 years in?
22.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
That's one of
Yes.
no incidents, no issues. But the day after you complained about something,
Right.
then
Yes.
this started happening. Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to
Yes.
help everybody understand.
Yes. The only thing I had was when I first started, it was just a written reprimand because this officer said something I didn't like, and I told him how I felt about it. He didn't like that.
Right.
And that's one of the things that they don't like. They don't like what they say. You're sassy or you talk back.
Mhm.
But I can't stand to see anyone disrespect somebody. Okay, if I see it, I was always known no nonsense Swilley, or no nonsense Kathy. But to make a long story short, I was relieved of duty, and when I went to IED that morning, I asked the sergeant, "Why am I being relieved of duty?" He said, "I don't know. I thought by now I would know also, and we'll let you know." Well, that probably went on. I let you know probably for about 3 months. Nobody never told me why I was being relieved of duty. But at that time, I was in school, and I needed to get my books. So I got permission to go to get my books. And when I got there, the internal affairs, and I didn't know anything was going on. At the time, the IED sergeant was parading me. I didn't know he was actually parading me at that time, but I went to get my books, and everything in my desk had been confiscated, and everything was put in a box and set to the side where anybody could see it. Anybody, all of my work file, everything was gone. So IED called me and told me to come to pick up a complaint. I was investigated for, again, I didn't even know I was investigated for They gave me a package, and it was about 60 questions. And they was asking a whole lot of questions that I really didn't understand why. They was asking me these questions about my bank account, you name it, they was asking. And so I was only able to answer all those questions because I had a backup file of everything, all of my work at home. Because as God would have it, at first I was thinking, oh, they just piling all the work on me, but I started sending stuff home. Okay, I was working from home too. And I get home at 6 o'clock and cook and eat. I worked at 9 o'clock. Well, if I didn't have that backup file, I wouldn't have been able to answer all those questions. If I had not been able to answer all those questions, I still would have been probably terminated for failure to cooperate with an investigation. And my sergeant said, "You were actually able to answer all these questions?" Yes. So then he came back and he was really angry. And I asked him, I said, "Sorry." He said, "I can't believe what the captain is making me do to you." I said, "Well, what is he making you do to me? What are you talking about?" And he said, "They want you to," he had me to call the DA's office to try to get the prosecutor to accept charges on you. Charges for what? And he said, "For misappropriating funds." I said, "What are you talking about, misappropriating funds?" First of all, if it's my nonprofit, that's my money that I use for that nonprofit. And he said, no, I don't think that it's just that one nonprofit. They just think you are misappropriating funds from Chief Hurt's organization.
So again, all of this is happening after you complained.
After I
Nothing
complained.
before.
Nothing before.
Okay.
See, I was only over there for 8 months. 8 months.
So you were eventually terminated.
Yes, but before, so I went and I got the files from the bank, and it showed everything. There was I get an IED. In their IED report, it's in that file, and it shows Officer Swilley did not misappropriate any funds, which was a basic investigation. And in fact, she and her husband donated over $25,000 into the organization.
So it was found that you did nothing wrong.
Did nothing wrong. The prosecutor said that they wouldn't accept charges for lack of facts.
But you still was let go and terminated.
So they turned around after there was no charges accepted by 2 prosecutors. They decided, well, we're just going to terminate her anyway. So they made up a charge of untruthfulness. They never let me go back to work.
And untruthfulness is just like basically saying that you lied.
It is you telling you lied, yes. So when I asked them, what are y'all talking about I lied about? because I was off of work all this time. I wasn't even there. I was off on FLMA, a stress leave. And because they were harassing me, they were giving me all, you name it, they were doing it at my house, throwing dead animals in my yard, officers knocking on my door any daytime or night, you name it, they were doing it. And at this time, I was taking care of my husband who had terminal cancer, and they just was harassing me. I had to unscrew the light bulb in the Fuller area of my home because I was afraid if somebody kicked the door in, they would see. But if there was no light there, they couldn't see, okay? And I sit in my den with my gun every night to protect my husband and I, every night. And the question is, who you gonna call when it's the police that's the bullies? Okay?
My Lord.
Who you gonna call?
Wow.
Okay? So, but everything in that IED files totally clears me. When I had my hearing, my termination hearing, the city officials was forced to admit that I was wrongfully terminated. When they admitted that I was wrongfully terminated, that meant that the termination letter was fabricated. That meant that the dishonorable discharge I got was fabricated. All that was just completely fabricated. And I've gone to you name it, I've been to the city hall. It's there, the evidence is there, but nobody's listened. Even though they admitted that I was wrongfully terminated, it appears the arbitrator, independent arbitrator, he ruled in my favor because he had already caught them. He asked them were they attempting to present erroneous evidence, and they were forced to admit that they were. And it appears on the documents that the arbitrator actually did rule in my favor, but someone changed his ruling.
Wow.
The brief, just and the same thing they did with the Tuttles, the same thing they did with other officers, the same thing they did with those 22 citizens right here in Sunnyside was exonerated, all based on fabricated evidence. Everything that I had complained about in this letter some 16 years ago, this was 2008, it was there. Everything. They lied to judges. You spend all this money to get an attorney, to go to court, and they flat out lied to the judge. Okay? So.
Wow. So Mr. Bowie, thank you for sharing. I want to come back to that too. As it relates to the fabricated evidence that was just talked about, I was reading, matter of fact, for those that may not know, I'm editor of associate editor of the Forward Times newspaper here in Houston. And I wrote an article this week called Gerald Goins, Scapegoat or Mastermind. And the reason that I put that out there, it was a question more so than anything, because, he's been given 60 years per person. And the way it looks is he's the only one that was responsible for this heinous behavior that led to the death of these two individuals. However, Gerald Goins has a pattern, a history of doing this type of behavior. And you can't tell me that people that he worked with and worked for had no idea that he was doing this type of activity. So can you speak to that?
Well, I don't know, people know in the community that he was known as Batman,
Yes.
and his partner was named Robin. So what he would do is he would see a drug dealer and just shake him down, meaning give me your drugs and money, right? Or you go to jail. And he would have narcotic drugs in his van. That's why you talk about pattern practice. That's what he did with the Tuttles.
Yeah. I like to say a lot of those people, they were not drug dealers.
Mm-mm.
They were innocent people. They were innocent.
Right.
That's why a lot of them have been exonerated. If I can remember, it's over 22 that was exonerated. There was one guy that was already in prison doing 26 years. If the Tuttles had not been, first of all, if police officers had not been shot in this botched drug raid, it just would have been a drug deal gone bad. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if that had not happened, and may the Tuttles rest in peace, but their death has not been in vain. If that had never happened, that man would have been still serving time, 26 years, okay? I don't know how long he was into his sentence, but he was exonerated, okay? You have those other 21 guys that was exonerated. They could have still been in jail too, okay? I like to say HPD have one of the best academies in the world. When I went through the academy, officers from all over the country would come to Houston Police Academy. There's some really good officers, and all they want to do is do their job. But when you have leadership that ignore good officers when they complaining about what's going on, everybody walk around with their mouth shut and go along to get along. HPD does not hire rogue cops. They create rogue cops.
Wow.
Okay? And they create rogue cops because they keep bad cops on the force. Okay? There was an article that came out not very long ago where even when good cops complain that they witnessed their fellow officers abusing citizens, IED dismissed all the complaints except I think about 4. So they don't even believe their own officers. Okay? So there is a problem. Actually, when you talk about rogue cops, I'm just going to read this to you. All of the complaints that, and I hope I can find it. All of the complaints, how you have officers that have 30 complaints, 40 complaints, 50 complaints. How you have that? And I do have it here somewhere in the paperwork. But
well, as you're looking for that, I want to share something with the listeners in the audience. One of the things that I highlighted in the article that's forwardtimes.com, you can check out, is that there was an audit that was done and performed on the Houston Police Department Narcotics Division. And they reviewed the Narcotics Division from January 28th, 2016 to January 28th, 2019. This was after the Tuttle and Nicholas murders. And one of the glaring parts of that report was that Gerald Goins, and another officer by the name of Stephen Bryant, who was also tied in this situation, it revealed that they reviewed a total of 231 investigations that were completed by Goins and Bryant between that time period, and they found that 404 errors. They found 404 errors along with other findings. And due to false statements made by Goins and Bryant regarding the botched raid, they started reviewing 14,000 cases. And Goins was the lead agent on 84 cases between January 2016 and January 2019. And on about 40% of those cases, he worked closely with Stephen Bryant. And in February 2020, Kim Ogg, Harris County DA, identified roughly 70 people whose convictions may have been tainted by Goins' involvement in their arrest and prosecution. 2 of those individuals were a gentleman by the name of Otis Mallett, and the other one was named Stephen Mallett, and this was in 2008. And he testified, Goins did at trial, that he bought $200 worth of crack from Stephen Mallett, and he watched as him and his brother Otis completed the transaction based on nothing but his word. Another officer that was involved in the arrest said he never saw the transaction take place, and other witnesses testified to the same thing. Yet the jury convicted Otis Mallett on the word of Gerald, just the word of Gerald Goins, and this man was sentenced to 8 years in prison. 8 years in prison based off of Gerald Goins' word alone. Yep. You had other officers say that they didn't see a thing. You had other witnesses say that they didn't see a thing. But yet this man went to jail for 8 years, and his brother went to jail as well because of the word of this man that just got 60 years per person this afternoon. So, Mr. Bowie, and I know have you found that information?
One of the things that Goins was doing was he was recycling victims. When I say recycling, he knew when they would get out of jail. He was working in one little area out here in Sunnyside and Third Ward. So when those men would get out of jail, he would go back and arrest them and playing drugs on them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, one of the guys testified. Somebody asked him, "Well, why did you take the deal?" And he said, "I had no choice but to take the deal. I had just got out of jail because that officer had lied on me before, and the jury believed him. So if I had not took a deal, do you really believe a jury wasn't going to give me more time this time?" So that's how so many people were constantly going back in the system because he was like a predator just waiting for them to come home.
Yeah.
Okay. And see, what people don't understand is the narcotic division, not just in HPD, in majority of police departments, they get their money from federal funding. The more people you arrest on drugs, that you're out here, you're cleaning up the community, then that justifies you getting more grant money. And what they was using that federal funding money for, what? Overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What also came out in one of the reports, this one officer worked in a division for 12, I think 15 years. He served over 100 no-knock warrants. And in each one of those warrants, he said guns were involved. But when the inventory was done, there was no guns. So he had been lying for a long time to get the warrants, okay? So the question is, now everybody know this is Texas. There's nobody not gonna have a gun in their house. I believe the guns was there, but the guns disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mr. Bowie, so, and I know you probably found that, but
Right.
I'm gonna come back to
That's
that.
fine.
So you have We the People organized.
Yes.
And you follow cases in community issues like this. So first of all, why did you start this organization? And what do you make of this systemic pattern
Right.
that we're seeing?
Well, I started this organization because this case was so egregious. And I felt in my heart that we could make history. And we did today. This is the first time an HPD officer has been sentenced, for murder.
The first?
The first in Harris County. Now, this is according to Kim Og today in her press conference.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so, it's, like earlier in your introduction, it's very difficult to get a police officer. And for me, when I saw this, there was a lot of pushback in the beginning when I was starting organizing. I remember my first town hall. Ooh, there was a lot of controversy then.
Everybody liked the police.
They were like, wait, what are you doing? Because I said, as an activist, I waited to see what other groups would join in and do anything. No one did anything.
So I mean, what were you doing before We the People organized?
No, I was an executive member of the Greater Houston Coalition for Justice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been in the work.
I've been in the work.
Yeah.
So I learned all I have to thank Johnny Mata. He taught me everything I know.
Yeah.
He's the leader of our group. And so learn how to get the press, learn how to organize town halls, learn how to write press releases, so it's very important. And messaging. I had a sign that said 14 shots and a cover-up. Right, it was very powerful.
40.
Well, guess what? In the courts, in the trial, I found that I was wrong. I was off by 26 shots. It's 40 shots at a cover-up.
Wow.
Okay, so it's amazing. So again, Jeffrey, we're hoping that in the civil trial, we'll get to see more evidence and to review as we peel the onion more, we will see the cover-up.
Now, one of the things shocking things that came out during the trial that I thought was very shocking was the testimony about the body camera.
Right.
in that one of the officers' body camera was on, and then HPD Chief Art Acevedo came in and demanded that he turn it off.
Yeah, to shut it down.
And then when questioned about it, he revealed that he was doing so based off of policy. But when you look at the dates, you see that the policy that he was referring to was a policy that was amended.
That's right.
After the shot, after the total.
He lied.
He lied.
He lied. You can say it.
He lied.
He
That was
lied.
part of the cover-up that
Exactly,
you're talking
exactly.
about.
He lied. So the question is, first, why would he come in and tell him to turn off the body camera? What was discussed? What was done?
Right.
What were they trying to plant something? What were they trying to get their
Exactly.
stories or narrative
Yeah,
together?
there you go.
And so, you know, it's just baffling to me, but that was real glaring to me
Mhm.
that came out. What, I mean, you were
Well,
there.
no,
so-
yeah. So like today at the press conference, Mario Diaz of Channel 2 asked that same question. And I must admit, the lawyers answered correctly. He said, well, we are not focused about that because the Tuttles were killed already. By the time the chief got there, they were, you know, that's not relevant to the case.
Mhm.
So I understand. That's logical because you can distract the jury and go down this rabbit hole. No, but that's our job as activists. We ask you, and you too, Jeff. You were very wise to figure that out.
Yes.
Why did the chief said turn off the camera? If you are about transparency and all accountability, why turn off the camera?
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, so they lie. These
Yeah.
guys lie like left and right.
Yeah. But I want to talk about the lying and the cover-ups
Oh.
and kind of go a little deeper because this is not a Gerald Goins issue.
No.
This is a law enforcement blue code of silence
Mhm.
issue that has been talked about many times for many years, but we still continue to see some of the same patterns. Will this bring about change in HPD and other places? We'll know, but we're going to take a break. No break? Okay. I can't see that far.
That's right.
Oh, okay, yes. And so, I wanted to thank you so much, a moment to remind everyone that we're on the heels of George Floyd's birthday. And, of course, we know what happened to George Floyd. As a matter of fact, George Floyd,
Mhm.
George Perry Floyd Jr., who was murdered on camera in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was a victim as well
Yes.
of Gerald Goins.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, he arrested him.
Mhm.
He was, given some sentence because of Gerald Goins' testimony, and as a result, it went to the state for. As a matter of fact, they made a recommendation to posthumously
Right.
remove his sentence, and then they backed off of it for whatever reason. I don't know, but he, ironically, you think about the tragedy of George
Mhm.
Floyd at the hands of law enforcement, and you think about how he was impacted by this criminal in HPD many years prior.
Mhm.
So, thoughts on that?
Well, again, Gerald Goins was very smart. He did not target River Oaks, Westview, all the affluent neighborhoods. Okay?
No.
No, that's right. He went after the low income, our neighborhood here and the east side, that's where the Tuttles were. Because he knew that chances are these people don't have lawyers. They don't
Yeah.
have, and so it just caught up with him. I think God finally said, okay, enough is enough. What you did all these years is so egregious, so bad that we are show the evidence to the jury like this. And that's why no jury should, once you see everything, I had sleepless nights listening to the sounds of those gunshots. It was so devastating. And normally in court, Jeffrey, they turned the audio even clearer. So you can actually hear all those bam, bam, bam over and over. It's like incredible.
Wow.
And then of course the forensic body, the images, Dennis was shot from the head, like execution, from the back of the head to the mouth, all busted up.
Jesus.
His shooting hand was wrapped. It was wrapped. And how could you shoot? There's so many things that will come out. I'm hoping later. They're saying that he shot 4 shots and every bullet hit an officer. Boy, he's a good shot.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you. And it was a Magnum 357. And one of the bullets skipped. That's a detail a lot of people don't know. You know, in the guns, you have, you should go in order. 4 shots go in, 1, 2, 3. Somehow, it skipped one and went to do it. What is that?
Yeah.
What is it, magic? What is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so all these things that, people,
At the end of the day, are we taking a break? Okay. All right. But before we do, at the end of the day, it's about, because we definitely need law enforcement.
Mhm.
No question. I mean, if there's a issue, a problem, a challenge in our home, our communities, you want to call the police to come and address the situation. However, as the question was posed earlier, who are you going to call when the police are the bullies, when they're not the ones that are for you? And you think about incidents like Breonna Taylor, where and others that called the police and were murdered because I think there was a recent situation where a lady was murdered on camera, and she had it was a scalding water or some boiling water, and she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," and he executed her, saying that like she was saying something demonic or something, like she was going to attack him. So all of these things that we see, and I don't want us to become desensitized, and I don't want this to become the norm, as this is behavior that is acceptable. We just need to just deal with it. No, we need to address it. And it has to start from within the law enforcement agencies all across the United States, not just here in Houston. But we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. Great discussion. Give it up, audience, for our guests. We're going to come back with the second part of Trending Tuesdays. We'll take it and give it over to Miss Danette Davis.
All right. Yeah. What an excellent discussion. And yes, and we all know we need good policing. That's for sure. I know when Jeff, when you mentioned, as I listened to you talk, I did not want the audience to forget that the George Floyd statue is in Tom Bass Park. That sacrifice that he made and the movement that came as a result of it. Now, we're still waiting on the George Floyd Policing Act and for that pardon that we never did get, what have you. I just wanted to make sure that we have our own things that we can do, and we don't want to ever forget. In the showroom, if someone is here, you can always, those pictures, the photograph from the unveiling is always here on display. And for those folk that are in the audience tonight, I want you to be able to walk around and take a look and not remember. But Sharita, who's founder of the 929 Foundation, will have just a few words or what have you. She is a relative of George Floyd and keeps the movement going.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Good evening, everyone. As she said, my name is Dr. Sharita McGee, and I am one of the founders of the 929 Foundation. We started it shortly after George was murdered to try to keep his legacy alive. And I remember just like yesterday, we were actually in the middle of the trial when we were reached out to write letters and to work towards getting the pardon. And the board had recommended it, and then I remember them rescinding it, and they said it was based on procedural errors. So we still don't know specifically why that happened. But the good news sort of is that they said after 2 years that we could reapply for it again. So we are planning to do that. But as she stated, George's birthday is October the 14th. We try to do something to always sort of make sure people don't forget the sacrifice that he made, and we are continuing to work towards trying to get the George Floyd Policing Act passed. Traveling around the country and being involved with other organizations as well. I just came back from California with a group, and they are actually have done some things in reference to decertification of police officers. They actually have a board there where officers, after they've been fired, then they also work towards actually getting them decertified so they can't be police officers anywhere else. So I'm excited about some of the things that I found as I work with other organizations, and hopefully some of those things we can bring back here. The best work we can do sometimes is those things that are right around in our own communities, locally and in our own state. And as we're waiting for the federal act to be passed, there's still work that we can do otherwise.
Today I sit at a conversation with George. It's a statue we installed at Tom Bass Park in honor of George Perry Floyd Jr. This beautiful installation gives folks an opportunity to sit with him and reflect on his life, his legacy, and the work that remains. Floyd's killing and the killings of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others sparked a nationwide movement. A movement fueled by 400 years of blacks pleading to have America's knee taken off their necks. If I could have a conversation with George Floyd today, I would let him know, Mr. Floyd, your life mattered. I know this because 8 days after your murder, 60,000 people took to the streets of downtown Houston. They demanded justice in your name. This scene was repeated across the country and around the world. People began to acknowledge what black people have been living for 155 years. They lifted up your memory because you were one of our own, a gentle giant, a proud graduate of Jack Yates High School, an athlete and a mentor. You were too young to have given much thought to your legacy, but my God, what a legacy you have left behind. George Perry Floyd Jr., you did not die in vain. You ignited a movement across the nation. Your death pulled back the curtains on how America criminalizes poverty, substance use, and mental illness. It revealed the crisis of over-policing, exposed our two-tiered system of justice that favors the wealthy. And after your funeral, Harris County passed a package of criminal justice reforms that previously would have been impossible. Not only policing reforms, but also holistic change, moving away from a discriminatory system of mass incarceration and toward a broader vision of true community safety. We work hard to relieve police of first responder duties when it comes to substance use, mental health, and poverty. Our holistic assistance response team is already exceeding expectations, diverting 911 calls so people in crisis get the help they need. We're pushing back the end that cash bail system. We're bolstering indigent defense. And along with HEART, we created a community-led gun violence reduction program. Your death opened the door to policies and practices that will protect us all. Your death forced a gut check on our funding priorities. And your death forced us to reckon with the long history of racism underpinning the systems that led to your murder. We are making progress, but we are not done yet. When I sit here and reflect on all that's happened these past 3 years, I want you to know I'm more committed than ever to continue this work. In Harris County, your home county, we believe in justice for all, and we will continue pushing to create a county that lives these values.
We're here live at the K. Davis Showroom Plus, and this is brought to you, of course, by KDITC and the community. I always want to thank Danette Davis for all of the work that she does in the community. She is one of those unsung heroes that don't get enough credit for the work that she does in the community. And let's give her a round of applause for the work she does. You know, of course, it was mentioned about the statue that she funded that sits now in Tom Bass Park. If you have not gone by there to check it out, please be sure to do so. It is a wonderful piece of art. But we're going to get back into our discussion. Again, I want to encourage everybody to get out and vote. This is a very important election. November the 5th is the day, not November the 6th. So make sure that you mark your calendars. Go early. You know, you never know what's going to happen, you know, on the day of, you know, and you don't want to make any excuses or have any reason as to why you could not cast your vote. You know, they purged about 2 million folks off of the voter rolls in Texas. the governor did here recently. So there's a whole bunch of folks that don't want your vote to count. So make sure your vote does count. We're gonna get back into this discussion. We're talking about Gerald Goins, who just this afternoon was found not only guilty earlier this week, but also he was sentenced to, well, actually late last week, but he was sentenced to 60 years per person for the deaths of 59-year-old Dennis Tuttle, 58-year-old Regina Nicholas, and their dog, who was also a part of that murder. And there was countless officers that were also injured and shot as a result of this botched raid that was done fraudulently, wrongfully, shouldn't have happened in the first place, based off of a no-knock warrant that was issued based off of his word, in essence. And we were talking about some of the incidents that have happened. And I wanted to share one more before I go back to our guest. We're joined by Ha Bowie, who is the founder of We the People Organize and former HPD officer, 22-year decorated police officer, Kathy Swilley, who was wrongfully terminated based off of fraudulent information as well. One of the other defendants that after the Tuttle's situation, it was found that Gerald Goins was the liar that he is, or that most people knew about, but nobody addressed, was that this gentleman, Frederick Jeffery, he was convicted of possession of a controlled substance in 2018, and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison because Goins testified in court that a confidential informant bought drugs at a house on Nettleton Street, and that Mr. Frederick was outside of that house, and he arrested Mr. Frederick with 4.7 grams of methamphetamines and a cell phone that was on him. This is what, of course, Goins testified in court. Mr. Frederick denied it. He vehemently denied it. He said, no, that was not me. I was framed. This is a lie. But he appealed, stating that the search warrant that Goins obtained had another person listed as the target, and that no evidence connected him to the drugs or the cell phone that Goins said belonged to him. After the appeal, the Court of Appeals for the First District affirmed the conviction. And, it was just 3 weeks after, though, what happened at the Tuttles. And so the fact that Goins was being investigated because of what happened with the Harding Street raid, this judge appointed an attorney to him to file a petition for a writ of habeas corpus, which stated that Goins falsified government documents, including the search warrant application, and had testified falsely about him owning the cell phone. Going even further, HPD interviewed the confidential informant themselves that Goins listed on the search warrant, and she told them, the confidential informant that was supposed to be confidential and an informant that was supposed to be telling the truth about what happened, right? This person said that she didn't even buy any drugs from Mr. Jeffery, and that she was not even at the address, and that she and Goins had been doing improper things, listen to this, for several years. This confidential informant testified, shared with HPD investigators, that not only was what he said false, that gave this man 25 years in prison, but that she and Goins had been doing improper stuff like this for several years. How many people's lives were destroyed, families separated and disrupted because of this lie, these lies, this fabricated evidence? Do you think that Gerald Goins was the only one? Absolutely not. So, Mr. Bowie, when we see stuff like this, what do we or can we do other than protest, march, and complain?
No, we got to get organized, and that's what we're going to plan to do. We're looking for victims in the town hall in a couple of weeks for the family. That's why we're going to hold it here. We held at church. Hall where? The church right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's the address? Do we have an address for the church?
You have it?
We'll come back to
We'll
that.
come back to that. Yeah. No, but my point
so
is,
you're
yes,
gonna have a town hall here in
meeting
Houston.
Here in Houston, and we're going on tour basically. Kathy and our team will go on tour, and we gotta resolve this issue with all these people who are innocent. Hopefully they come out.
So you're looking to try to help individuals that have been impacted potentially by goings. But what about going forward? What about the Jane Goins and the Jonathan Goins or all the other Goins that may be doing this type of behavior? You heard this confidential informant say that she and Goins had been doing this type of improper stuff for several years.
Right.
So he's not the only one. He's not going to be the scapegoat here. I'm not going to make him the poster child scapegoat for what is systemic behavior in HPD and other law enforcement agencies.
Well, I like to say, you start by you cannot have police reform, public safety until you get the community involved.
Mm-hmm.
And Gerald Goins' incident comes on the heels of the 264,000 cases that the police department failed to investigate. Those were victims. Okay,
you're talking about what allegedly Chief Fenner was terminated because of this alleged issue.
He resigned. To clarify.
Well, we know what it was. We know. Come on, we already know what it was. He didn't have a choice.
Okay.
He didn't have a choice.
And right after that, there was a Fifth Circuit, a whole panel of Fifth Circuit judges that said, in another case where HPD officers lied on a Good Samaritan, he saw somebody drunk. This guy saw, and he was a police officer too, by the way. I think it was from California. He saw a person that was drunk, and he thought that he wanted to make sure the guy didn't get in his car and kill somebody in this city. Well, the police officers, when they came out, they arrested the Good Samaritan. So the Fifth Circuit judge said the officers were so blatantly lying in their evidence to the courts that they didn't qualify for qualified immunity, and that HPD was upheld their officers in that such misconduct. Now we had gone to Mr. Bowie and several other people. We had gone to City Hall and we filed a 16-page brief report detailing all of the incidents where officers clearly had a pattern of lying to judges, fabricating evidence, and tampering with evidence. We turned all that in. There was a total of 40 cases where officers had did this already. There was one officer that was indicted, I guess about 8 months ago, in a road rage incident where he lied and said a citizen pulled a gun on him. And the only thing how he got indicted, because he had already went back to work. But that citizen saw where he went back to work, and she said, "Oh no, not so fast." And I think she had a video of the incident didn't happen. So as you can see, again, actually the police union said the reason why he was allowed to come back to work, there was nobody to testify against him.
Wow.
Okay. So, but I like to say, you asked when the town hall. We're having a town hall on
the 24th.
The 24th.
Right.
We the people are having a public safety victims matter call to action town hall. Okay. On October 24th, we're inviting victims who was falsely arrested by Gerald Goins, the mayor, city council, the new police chief, Diaz, and other elected officials to come out and to address officers' pattern and behavior of manipulating investigations, fabricating and tampering with evidence, and lying to judges against officers and Houstonians. And we want to know what their plans are to protect officers and Houstonians. Because see, as Mr. Boney said, there was 4 officers that was shot after Goins lied to get this warrant. My career was derailed right along with a whole lot of other officers, mostly minority officers, after the department lied and said we were untruthful when we reported discrimination, even though they said that they could not investigate 264,000 cases for lack of personnel. Well, what about all the officers you just fired because they reported discrimination? Okay, first of all, if I report discrimination, the policy state that I must report discrimination or sexual harassment. That is policy. And if you don't, you will get terminated because you didn't. So why couldn't you want to complain about lack of personnel? That's not an excuse to not investigate 264,000 cases when you're terminating officers left to right. Mr. Boney asked me a few minutes ago when I said HPD does not hire road cops, but they keep back officers on the force. How is it that an officer complained of discrimination or sexual harassment, they're out of a job? One complaint. One complaint. We had an officer, he had 27 years on. He had 47 complaints, sustained complaints, sustained complaints. We had
Wait a minute, are you saying that they complained?
No, these were sustained complaints.
So these are people complained on them.
And they were found guilty by
Wow.
IAD.
So a sustained complaint is meaning that it was found to be a truthful act.
A truthful act.
A truthful complaint.
Right. Whatever that.
And that person was 27 years and had how many?
47.
47
Yes.
that had been proven.
Proven. Yes.
Okay.
Then you have another officer, had 16 years. He had 44 complaints, 44 sustained complaints.
16 years.
16. You had another officer, had 29 years. He had 44 sustained complaints. Another one, 15 years, 41 sustained complaints. Another one, 17 years, 41 sustained complaints. Another one, 20 years, 33 sustained complaints. 25 years, that officer had 30 complaints. 18 years, that officer had 32 complaints. Another officer had 27 years. He had 32 sustained complaints. Another one had 18 years. He had 31 sustained complaints. Another one had 17 years. That officer had 28 sustained complaints. Another one had 22 years. He had 16 sustained complaints. Now, mind you, some of these, yes, they're still there. Now, some of these officers, you had two officers, they had 2 complaints because they were incompetent. And they're still there. Now, mind you, when I told you that my supervisors did not want to do that youth program, I did not know at the time that my police chief, and I'm sure he didn't know either, he assigned me to a department that was completely dysfunctional. My captain was working his security job business on city time with over 30 other officers on duty, officers and commanders.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that he was working his side business, but he had 30 reporting to him, or 30 working for his side business?
Working for his side business on city time.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. You're saying that he was employing on-duty officers to work his side business?
Yes.
For him?
Yes. It's called double dipping, y'all.
And he's still on?
He just retired. He only got a 90-day suspension. But the rest of them,
He only got a 90-day
he
suspension.
got a 90-day suspension.
So they found him guilty of this?
They found him guilty of lack of sound judgment. It should have been official officer capacity, or something they call it. Okay, it is a criminal charge, but he was not in charge or investigated for that. But abusing official capacity is what it's called, using your job for your own personal gain. But they didn't get fired.
Okay, and then I remember, because I know I wrote about this some years ago. I'm just trying to recall, but I know I'm right about this. There were 4 officers that were found guilty of a ticket writing scheme.
Yes.
Where they were writing tickets, or was it overtime, or what? They were getting overtime.
Yes.
To write, and then they were writing false tickets.
Yes, they were signing each other's
Signing
names
each other
for
tickets
overtime.
for overtime.
And one officer alone made over $1 million in overtime. And the chief at that time decided, well, I'm just going to give you some days off. I need to, y'all can say.
So they kept their job.
They kept their jobs.
And got a slap on the wrist.
Slap on the wrist.
No jail time. And they got to stay on the force.
Yes. Yes. The other thing too is the city attorney, when I complained that I had a duty to report discrimination, they also asked officers, well, you need to sign on, if it's illegal, it's called a last chance compromise waiver agreement. Well, that waiver agreement is based on some type of criminal behavior or just chumped up charges. Well, I refused to sign it. And one of my attorneys told me that it was illegal. So the city attorney said in one of the motions that officers are asked to sign those waiver agreements because they are a liability to the city. A liability. Now, if you can explain to me how an officer who's reporting discrimination, which is department policy, is a liability to the city, despite at the time she said that there was 296 officers, according to HPD's own policies, that had committed criminal acts. 296.
Wow.
And when it came out in the newspaper, one of the assistant police chiefs said he didn't know there was that many officers had criminal complaints. How could you not know?
We're about to get up out of here.
Could I tell a quick story about the overtime?
Sure, but let me
Sure.
just say this one thing, but I definitely want to give you all final words in conversation. There was a case that had gone on for about 8 years, and I know you all are familiar with this. It was a Hispanic officer by the name of Chris Zamora. And Chris Zamora had, just like similar to you,
Yes.
I mean identical almost, he complained and he was found the same way. He was written up and found to be untruthful, and they terminated him, right?
No, they suspended.
They suspended him, excuse me, thank you. They suspended him, and he, fought it, and it ended up going to the Supreme Court, actually. And he was defended by now Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Then she was an attorney, and she took the case, I want to say pro bono, because the family just couldn't afford to fight it anymore. They was about to wash their hands of it and just say, forget it. But she took on the case, and this is what I wanted to read to you all. After the United States Supreme Court found that HPD committed both discrimination and retaliation against its own officers. This is what the attorney, civil rights attorney, Randall Callanan, who participated in the case, said, quote, "The court determined that there was a code of silence at the city of Houston in their police department for retaliating against officers for reporting any kind of wrongdoing whatsoever," unquote. So talk about the overtime case and on that.
Yeah,
situation.
because this is what I learned at the trial. Okay, Gerald Goins, he operates Narcotics Unit 15. Their hours are, they work the morning shift hours, so it's from 10 to 5. That's the hours, the whole team. Guess what time the raid is? 5:30. So what did that tell you? When I heard that at the trial, I go, okay. But none of the lawyers want to talk about it. They just,
why don't they even want to talk about it?
well, just, not relevant. They want to focus on convicting him, But that, to express your
But see, I hear what you're saying, but there's a deeper
right
issue here.
Yes,
It's not just about getting a conviction.
exactly.
It's about getting to the bottom of why he had to be convicted in the first place.
Right. Well, that's what I thank you for having this forum and get you guys aware what's going on, and
that's why
educate.
we're hosting the town hall.
Exactly.
So some of this stuff can
Could
out.
come out. Yeah.
And I like to add this too. If it had not been for Johnny Mata with the Greater Coalition for Justice, Goins probably would not have been indicted in the first place, because at the time, I think it was 2000. I'm not sure the date.
14.
14. the grand jury of Houston, Texas was reformed after it was learned that officers from HPD had stacked the grand jury following the shooting, the murder of another police officer. Okay, so prior to that, before grand jury reform in Texas, there was 264 officers, no bill, consecutively. Now, even Ray Charles could see something was wrong with that. Okay, how could you have that many officers, no bill, consecutively? So if it had not been for Johnny Mata with the Greater Coalition for Justice, working for 32 years to get grand jury reform, he was only asking for grand jury reform in Harris County, but he was able to get grand jury. We were told that case with HPD officers stacking the grand jury, the jury foreman was the guy's friend. Okay, that case was so egregious. The grand jury was formed for the whole state of Texas. Now, I like to think Mr. Bowie, if Mr. Bowie had never started his organization, we wouldn't have no-knock warrants protocol change nationally, okay? Once the Tuttle's case, Mr. Bowie met with the chief at that time, Art Acevedo, and it was agreed that they would change protocol on how no-knock warrants would be served, period, all over. At that time, Chief Art Acevedo was the police chief of the Chiefs Association. So I like to thank Mr. Bowie. If anybody tell you one person can't make a difference, don't believe them. Because this man and Johnny Mata made a difference in Houston, Texas, okay?
No, thank you.
And in his case, nationally. The other thing I want to add too is Goins was so out of control, and his supervisors allowed this to happen. And I have to say the judge in this case too, that let him do this, they didn't even have Mr. Tuttle's height and weight on the warrant. It just said white male. They didn't even have the man's, that's it. How could a judge sign off on a warrant and there's no definition or description of what the person looked like, other than white male?
So I'll give you all. This has been have y'all enjoyed the discussion? I know everybody in the audience, and then I hope everyone that's viewing as well. If you could find again when and where you're having the town hall meeting. Mr. Bowie, I'll ask you to just share a few words for the community, and not only just coming out to the town hall, if you have those, what can the community do, or what should they do to get engaged in this issue to try to bring about more reforms and more changes?
The key is the people. That's why we named the group We the People Organize. I'll tell you another quick story. Sarah Sanchez was a neighbor to Regina Nicholas. I went, when this just happened, back to 2019, when I went door to door to get to investigate what happened, I met Sarah Sanchez. And from the very beginning, she said, the Tuttles are not drug dealers. Please help clear their names. And I said, sure, but Sarah, I need your help. I need you to come join our group. And she had to talk to her family. They had a lot of pushback. The daughters and the kids said, no, Mom, don't do it. Police will harass us. But I want to thank her. I called her this afternoon, thanking her for not listening to her kids, because she testified in the court. And her testimony was powerful. She said, what drug dealers you know would go to my wedding? Right? Or pick up my daughter from school.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
I mean, so today we cleared their names. And what again, we need people to speak up, to come out. Don't be afraid of the police. Don't be afraid. That's what was going on that.
Yeah.
That the community is scared. Retaliation. That's what it is. And if you can, so I thank her, said, you're a hero today. You stood up.
Yes.
Don't live in fear.
But this was my statement to the mayor. I think I've been in front of city council probably 3 times this year. And my message to the mayor and city council was, Houston police officers pattern and practice. Asked everybody in this room, who will be next? Will it be you? Or will it be your loved ones? What happened to the Tuttles? What happened to me, my fellow officers? It could happen to any of y'all. Okay? When you have nobody holding cops accountable, they can just lie whenever they want to, file false police reports. Goins' case should be a wake-up call. Be a wake-up call. We need people to come out to this town hall. There's more evidence to be heard. Come out, be a voice. I'm working on a bill to be filed in Austin to protect judges, because it starts right there in that courtroom, to protect the integrity in our courts and to protect judges from cops who just lie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Nobody should be able to just walk into a courtroom with a uniform on and just blatantly lie, and people lose their freedom.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well,
Thank you,
I thank
Jeffery.
you. Let's give it up again for Ha Bowie with We the People Organize. Y'all can do better than that. Come on now.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Kathy Swilley.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoyed everything on this evening. A lot of robust conversation. As was stated, please get engaged. Please get involved. Do not be silent. Do not be quiet. Your voice is important. And remember, November the 5th or prior to early vote, your vote is your voice.
Yes.
So make sure that you get engaged and involved in every way, and do not allow our community to live in fear and to be polarized by what we know is wrong and wrongful behavior. We must be the change that we want to see. All right, with that being said, I want to thank Danette Davis, KDITC, and the community. And of course, we want to see you back for the next Trending Tuesdays. We'll holler, y'all.
Thank you.